Now, when I heard that PCC was coming back,
I'm back. Wow, I'm back.
I initially had a lot of fear that this was going to be a big problem. I'm happy to say that I was not incorrect. I really don't like this new version of PCC, and everyone's got different opinions, but it removes several parts of PCC which made it special back in the day. It also does what SuperCard does best at the moment, and it takes a lot of control away from the player, and it's very automated and it's very repetitive. It's just not a great event. I'm going to cover off why in this video, giving some critique about the new game mode, because from my small limited time playing it, and I doubt that my experience is going to change, you fall into two camps, and one is that you don't enjoy it because it's too hard. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground, and that's not great. Any mode is going to have teething issues. I mean, War Games has had teething issues for 3 years now, and they still haven't fixed it. Well, they tried to and then made it worse. But I'd like to know your thoughts on PCC in the comments down below, and if you agree that this needs to go back to the drawing board and get extra work done on it, then hit that like button as hard as The Rock hit Cody Rhodes with that slap. Okay, if you did that, might damage your screen, don't go that hard. Anyway, thumbs up button, looks like that. And if you find a secret word hidden in the video, leave it in your comment, and if I find you using it, I'll give you the heart. The greatest heart in the world, because it shows I love you, because we're in Valentine's season. Now, I kind of spoiled this myself, but I'm improving my PCC deck just a little bit by adding an F3 Scarlet, which was in my last video, and my goodness, I did not expect it to be this easy to get her, but here we are. Now, one thing I'm going to try to do in this video is try to make it a little bit easier of a grind, because it's too early, in my opinion, for a guide of such. But what I can do is give you a couple of tips that might make it an easier playthrough for you. It really isn't a mode that needs a guide, because it's really quite simple, but there is one rule of thumb that I have preached and preached and preached about SuperCard in the past, with modes like Last Man Standing, 24/7 mode, and pretty much every mode, especially in my series Poor Man SuperCard, which you want to be keeping your eyes out for. Might just be seeing that soon. It is the road to WrestleMania after all, and if you like what you see, then hit that subscribe button as well. But I also managed to grab myself Randy Orton, which this pro animation looks, oh my goodness, it's great. But back to the main point of the video, and I was talking about PCC and why it's not all that it cracked up to be. Well, if you go back to my original video, or if you watch that video where I talked about PCC upcoming and the differences between this PCC and the old school, see, the people say the glory days. I'm going to be honest with you, it wasn't the glory days. Season 2 was okay, but season 1 was a mess. People see season 1 as like the GOAT, the OG. I think some people who said that are now starting to understand that PCC was a lot harder than it probably seemed back then, especially with our lives drawing and needing so much attention now through things like TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Everyone's brains are getting fried a little bit, and long events like this just aren't going to play into people's wants and desires. And it is not made easier by the fact that still, and I said this in my most recent video, we still haven't got a person or a system to deal with cheaters. I'm not gonna show any of these guys off because one, they don't deserve it, and two, it's just gonna cause a lot of problems for me. There's people with multiple accounts doing exactly the same stuff, and to be truthful, I just don't want to deal with the bullshit. But the scores these guys are getting just aren't reasonable. But some reasonable scores I am seeing are the likes of my team. Shout out to them, they are awesome, and including the likes of G-War, Arwent, Renobi, etc. Hey look, there's 420 somewhere in the world, and it is a relentless grind. I also want to bring a little bit of reference to this, which is kind of sucky. The rewards that you get for it, which are like the Road to Glory style, stop at the final reward, and that makes no sense because it just removes the incentive for people to play, especially if you're in the upper echelons of the rarities. It just makes no sense. But the grind is one of the bigger problems, and I seriously recommend you don't go hard in this event mainly because I've done some comparisons, and even the top level PCC cards, Triple H and The Undertaker, are not good enough to beat cards like Hulk Hogan, Obafemi, Karrion Kross, and unless, again, you guys are going absolutely mad, this mode is not going to give you what you want in terms of an overpowered card, and even if you do, it's very unlikely to give you anything of good value. So I seriously recommend stay back, get your card, and just take a chill. Make sure you get one card and enjoy the image. And they've really disincentivized the ranked event rewards, and I don't understand why, because they usually made those the priority, but now that's not the case, so treat it as such. Now, there is confusion, and this might actually take away from the point of PCC, because the whole idea of People's Champion Challenge is you play and play and play to get your reward. You're hoping that your side wins. You choose either Triple H or The Undertaker. PS, choose The Undertaker if you haven't done so already. And this goes for basically anyone who plays PCC. Now or in the future, wait until you know roughly who's winning after about, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours. You'll have a good idea of how many people are playing for one side over another, and choose the one who's winning. It gives you 1,000 extra credits. One thing we don't know yet is what rewards we're going to be getting, because there's been no clarification whether you get the reward that you usually would get in a ranked event, or whether you get the other side reward that gets the win, because the whole idea of PCC is you're playing for your side, and the side that gets the most wins is the superstar that is given to everyone who finishes in the top 10,000. Based on the rewards, it doesn't seem that's the case, which means they're giving rewards out to 20,000 people, but that doesn't make any sense because the leaderboards are combined. It's a little bit of a mess, I'm not gonna lie. Now we move on to the deck situation, and it uses the dreaded LMS deck system, and I can only make one recommendation here for anyone who's struggling with the deck, because it really does seem that unless you have the best deck possible or a very low balanced deck, even then you're still struggling. You're basically either one or two camps. You get easy matches or you get terrible matches. I mean, I'll give you an example right now. I play my plus 10 or plus 20 because I've got some quadruplers for this video, and you'll see that the cards I'm coming up against are null and void. And this goes against the very foundations of PCC and what made PCC what it was. And this is a big issue I've got with SuperCard, and shows the difference between Season 1 and Season 2 and the current day seasons. You're facing up against bots. These are basically people who don't exist. They're not a real account. They're just made with base level cards, which in one instance makes them easier to beat and easier to predict because they're going to be using base cards, no special cards. But the bad side of that is that you're not getting any real difficulty if you're near the top, and you're also not getting any variance if you're down and struggling with deck balance. If you've made mistakes of your deck, you're not going to come up against other people who've made mistakes of their deck. You're going to come up against other people who, well, they don't make mistakes because they're bots. And that takes away from the charm of PCC massively, because you're not dealing with a People's Champion Challenge. You're dealing with, well, what does Cat Daddy want you to have? They want you to have this reward. Okay, well, let's make this more enticing. And in the meantime, enjoy your constant grinding against, well, non-human players, which completely takes the excitement out of it. It's just a 4-day grind fest. And if you want me to do that, I'd rather play Codebreaker. I'm going to be honest. It uses more of my brain. You see, in the older days or Season 1, Season 2 days, one of the main benefits of this mode was that you could effectively be any rarity or tier back then, and you could make a deck that regardless of what tier, what rank you were, you could be up there with the very, very best, because strategically you could do things to your deck to what we call sandbag, which drops cards down. And like I said, that was the benefit of this mode for free-to-play players. Now, there is still a benefit for free-to-play players, and I'll talk about that in just a second, other than the fact that, yes, there's no bouts, so you don't have to worry about paying for bouts like you do with Clash of Champions. But the grind is so repetitive, tedious, and ongoing that you might probably wish they had put bouts in. Now, one way you can kind of turn this deck imbalance thing around is to look at what you're using for equipment, momentum slots, and the cards you've got. Number one rule is, and I say this in my Poor Man SuperCard series, which is my free-to-play series, where I go from the bottom to the top completely free of charge. Don't overpower your deck, especially if you're a newbie be. The whole idea about SuperCard is to balance your deck until you get to the top. Then you can start, well, one, keeping your deck balanced, but two, starting to strengthen it in all the areas and starting to get some of those more overpowered cards like event cards and some of these special edition cards. Or you might even take a dabble into the battle pass. I mean, that's the easiest way for any free-to-play player. Whilst you're not really free to play, a lot of people do escape that free-to-play player realm and do a battle pass just to get themselves an extra card, which, you know, that's kind of what it's there for. It's not for me or anyone else up the top echelon. It's for the guys in the lower levels who want to grab themselves a special card, and well, if you're willing to put the grind in, go for it. But if your deck is a little bit imbalanced on the power side, so maybe you've got some, I don't know, let's take this deck for example, and you got some Tundra and Crucible cards, best advice I can give you is to take off your equipments on your top level cards, put them on your bottom level cards, your best ones, and then use your momentum slots to boost your cards further. And what you'll end up with are cards that are a little bit closer to what you're looking at. Another suggestion I can make is if you have got higher level cards that don't match your arrow system for PCC, which should be 2 arrows only, so left and right for the men's and again left and right for the ladies, or it could be up and down for either of them. As long as you've got those matching, it's going to be so much easier, because even if there's a little bit of a power imbalance between your best and your worst cards, such as my Ilya Dragunov and my Gunter, they tag, which means they will have a boost by tagging, which might just beat some of the computers or AI or the bots tag teams which aren't compatible. So that's the biggest tip that you should get out of this, is make sure your arrows align. And again, you can do this by making sure you put certain cards into momentums, use equipment, training, and also proing or not proing certain cards. Again, don't boost your cards or your deck if you don't need to, or if it's going to unbalance your deck. To change arrows, which is for example what I've done with Scarlet as an example, you need to have these arrow equipments, and I will say they're not easy to come by. You do have to spend credits, and I seriously would recommend, if you're struggling and you do get that 1,000 free credits from playing this mode, you use that 1,000 credits to grab yourself one of the equipment packs and invest in these. But they do get given out for free every so often. Do get yourself as many of these as possible. I have 4 of each arrow. I know it's a little bit easier for me, but if you've got those, use them to your advantage. They are literally like gold dust. They will be the best thing that you ever do for modes like this, Last Man Standing, and many others. So just to cover that off, don't overbalance your cards. Use your momentums and your equipment to bring your cards up and down. Perhaps pull cards into your deck that weren't originally in there, and use arrow swaps if you've got them, because they may just be the difference between you winning a match via tag and losing a match which you possibly could have won otherwise. Even if they're not compatible but they're the same arrow, could make a big difference. So I genuinely hope that this makes a big difference for any of you going for PCC, or if you haven't decided to go for it yet, again, remember, pick the Undertaker or the card that's winning. But my true thoughts about this mode are it needs to go back to what it was best at, which is offering customization, none of this automated stuff. We need to go back to a time, in my opinion, one of the things they've lost in SuperCard over time is the ability to custom create your own experience. You can do that in certain modes like Road to Glory, for example. You can do that in Ring Domination if you want to, but a lot of the newer modes, Clash of Champions, Codebreaker, Giants Unleashed, Tag Team Takedown, and now PCC returning, everything's locked. Everything is what they want you to use. And one of my biggest gripes is that they choose what card you can use instead of you choosing. That way it's fair for all players. It's fair for the guys who want to spend or want to be using credits. It's fair for the people who don't. And it allows a lot more strategy, which actually makes the community talk more. And overall, that's great. Another thing that's going to make people talk more is having, again, those player-based accounts. It's such a different experience for SuperCard playing games, especially with the likes of Road to Glory, Ring Domination. I know sometimes it's a little bit tougher, but if they manage the difficulty, it makes it such a different experience when you're playing actual people within a community instead of just playing bots. We only have 3 real PvP modes because the PvP system just does not work. You're not facing real people, let's be honest. We have Survivor, TLC, and King of the Ring. That's it. Everything else is just automated, and it gets a little boring sometimes. And sometimes back in the day, that made it a lot easier to decide which opponents you would play, not corn dogs or CM Punk Rocker or the Randy Man Macho Savage, or my name. Again, this was a little information guide for you guys. I hope that this has benefited you in any way possible. If you want to see stuff about the Valentine's event, which is ongoing at the moment, then go to here. And if you've missed out any QR codes, then I recommend you go down there. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.